What's up, everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Codemaster7000, and today we're back with another chess game review. Now, this is a game I played against Shash Chess 2349, and that person might sound familiar because I played him in the Botas Gambit video. And yes, I have played him quite a few times on chess.com with somewhat varied results. Now, I'll tell you beforehand that this game is in between brilliant and chaotic. So you will see some terrible moments in this game, some moments where pieces are being blundered, but you'll also see some pretty stable chess and some pretty good moves as well. So without further ado, let's watch the game. D4, knight f6, c4, and here is the first surprise of this position. Now, normally you'd think that I would just play e6, and that's because I really, against knight to c3, I like to play the Nimzo. And after e6, if I'll just put this on the board, after e6, if white plays knight to f3, then I like to play d5. And here you can go into this exchange version of the Queen's Gambit decline, which is really quite good for black, although often does lead to a draw. However, in this position, I played quite a stunning move, e5. Now, e5 is the Budapest Gambit, and it looks quite dumb. It looks that after d takes e5, what have you accomplished? I mean, to be honest, even I, without knowing this opening, I would have thought that the evaluation would be +2. No, actually. So here there are two main moves for black, knight to g4 and knight to e4. So knight to g4 is the main line, and that's what's considered as the best move here for black. However, I played knight to e4 known as the Fajarowicz variation. Now you can see that the eval bar immediately swings to white is almost winning. Rather, white is much better. And that's because here the move a3 is considered the best response for white. However, this opening does have some traps. For example, if white thinks that they can carry on kicking around this knight, because look, it has just already moved twice. If white thinks that they can kick out the knight with f3, then they're completely wrong. First, you play bishop to b4 check, and if they block with bishop to d2, it's game over. Queen to h4 check is absolutely demolishing the position. G3 and knight takes g3. Now, this rook is going to be taken with a discovered check. So if you take the knight, I can take this rook, but I can also deliver checkmate in one move. So this is very vicious, and f3 is a losing move, but it's really natural. So this opening does actually have a point. However, my opponent plays bishop to e3, which is a fairly decent move, but bishop b4 check. And this is exactly why a3 is the best response to this, because one disadvantage for this as white are these weak dark squares near the king. That is why you should be playing a3. Knight to c3. Now, knight to c3 is a horrible blunder this early in the game. The best move is obviously the move knight to d2, so that this trade is not at all bad for white. However, the move knight to c3 does lose because knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop c3 is a fork of the king and the rook. Bishop d2 takes, and black is up 2 points of material, and it's around about -2 according to the engine. Here I castle, which is the most natural move. Now, if you had to construct a good plan for white, there are quite a few options. So, for example, you could be playing a move like knight f3. You could also be playing a move like e3. You could be playing a ton of different moves. What you absolutely should not be playing is the move e6, because this is far too early. Now, e6 would have a point if the queen was on d4 and the bishop was on c3, if there was an actual threat towards the g7 square. In that case, e6 would be good. E6 now just blunders a pawn. And f takes, I would say, is the best move, because now two pieces can rush to f6 and block the attack or trade queens if ever there is an attack. Queen d4, and here I could play queen f6, but I found the better move knight to c6, attacking the queen. Queen goes to b2, and this is what you should not be doing in the opening. Look, that I've already castled, I've developed the knight, I've taken somewhat good control of the center, and the rest of the pieces I can be developing like this. But what has white done? White has moved the queen multiple times in this game, has developed one bishop, and has lost material. So this position is completely winning for black. Queen f6. Now, queen f6 is a very decent move. I mean, you want to trade queens, and my opponent makes another horrible mistake here. This loses the game, for real. My opponent plays here. Now, you have to understand the concept of continuity. When this queen moved to f6, it was attacking the f2 pawn, and after queen f2 check and the king moves, you are also losing another bishop here. So bishop c3 is a horrible blunder. And yes, queen f2 check, king to d2, and here there are numerous moves you can play. For example, you can play queen takes bishop, which is the move I played in the game. Now, I don't think that the engine thinks that that is the top engine move. If I just check the engine lines, the move queen to f4 check is marginally better. But queen f1 is also a very good move, and that is the move I played. Bishop takes g7. Now, bishop g7 does create a threat on this rook, and this cannot be taken because of the queen. So here, obviously, you played the move queen f4 check, which was the top engine move earlier. E3, and here I played queen f2 check, which is actually quite a good move. Now, white has only got one good move, that is knight to e2. Under no circumstance should you move the king. First of all, because you trade queens, and now there's absolutely no hope left in the position. But secondly, if after you trade queens, say if the move king c1, queen b2, if you do end up taking with the king, it's checkmate in 12 moves. But first of all, you can just take this bishop. And you can see that this position is absolutely hopeless. Look at these attacking possibilities. For example, rook f2, knight b4. It's so easy to be bringing in your pieces here. So absolutely do not trade queens. Knight e2 is a good move. And here you have to carefully think, how do you proceed? Now, there are a few ways. I chose the move rook f7 because I saw that my rook was hanging and I decided to get it out of danger. Bishop h8. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this move seems so illogical. I mean, of course, you should be retreating the bishop back to c3. I don't know what this move does because, frankly speaking, this bishop could get trapped in the future. Not now, and it is still defended by this long diagonal. But if this diagonal is blocked, then this bishop could be trapped with no hope here. Queen takes g2. I do not punish this one bit, and almost all the advantage is gone. Why is this a losing move? Well, I mean, my queen was on f2, so I just could not stop looking at all of these pawns. Took one of them, and I'm almost losing the game due to the move rook to g1, and simply this pins the queen to the king, and it's defended. Now, admittedly, I thought that I was being secretly genius because I calculated queen g1, knight g1, rook f2 check, and I'm winning the queen myself. But the similar way that when my queen was here, you could block with the knight, it's the exact same story. Now what? I mean, you've given away a queen. It's still better for black, but how do you proceed? Well, I chose the move rook to g2. All the advantage is gone. Well, rook g2 was kind of necessary because otherwise, if we play a random move like a d5, queen to g7 is just checkmate. So I defended the mating attack with rook to g2, and my opponent played king b3. Now, king b3 looks absolutely idiotic, but it doesn't lose the game by force because of how I literally have one piece beyond the halfway line. This king is not getting mated very easily. Even if I try to bring in my other pieces, it will take a lot of time. So I played d5. Now, d5 is quite a good move because you want to be bringing in your pieces to the attack. Knight f4 attacks the rook. And probably, I mean, this was probably just failing to see. The rook can just take the queen here. So the knight was pinned all along. First of all, the knight was pinned to the king, but once you move the king, the knight is still pinned to the queen. So knight f4, rook b2, and now the game is completely lost. Here I played the move king takes bishop, which I would say I'm not 100% sure if it's the best move. I should probably play a move like knight to a5, saving my knight, but I decided to actually, I'm being very stupid. That blunders the rook. Never mind. King takes h8 is necessary because I completely failed to realize that this rook was hanging. Pawn takes e6. Now, pawn takes e6, I'd say both captures are fine because here you are threatening to make a queen. This cannot be taken because of the knight. Rook takes h2, e7, but simply blundering the pawn. And here you will see an absolute collapse. First, the blunder of a knight, just knight h3 backwards knight move, hangs a knight two ways. Then the blunder of a pawn. By the way, this was a pre-move, so I thought that the pawn would remain on a4. Rook to a4 was a pre-move. So then the blunder of the pawn, then the blunder of this pawn, and here you will see a acceptable conversion, you could say, of this endgame. I played knight g6, defending my rook, then rook to d8, bringing my other rook in. Rook c5 check, trying to go for ladder checkmate, but then the king can just attack the rook. Here a5 check, blundering a rook, because why not? a4, rook d4 check, and trying to make a queen. Now, here I can use my pawns to try and get the king to move, because if you realize, the king cannot go forward, and it cannot go here. It'll have to back up, and here I can cut off another file with my rook, and then try and push these pawns forward. So king to b2, a3 check, and b4. Same cycle. King has to go up. But here, you've got to be careful because if the king goes here, you don't want to be playing a2. Now the king cannot go here, cannot take this one, cannot go here. It's stalemate. So you don't want to be, this approach doesn't quite work. And b3 leads to the same problem after a2 check. King c1, then you make a queen. But after king a1, you will have to allow the king back because otherwise it's simply stalemate here if you play a random move. So this approach doesn't quite work. And so here I played the move bishop f5, hoping for king c2 and a discover check. King a2, b3 check, and this is just a clean loss of a pawn. Then now I decided to push the other pawn because I was like, okay, I've got no hope with these pawns. Let's push the other one. The conversion was fine, but then I decided to do it terribly. b2 and a check, and then I made a queen. So right now, here is where my opponent resigned because this is a completely hopeless position for white. Hope you enjoyed this chess game review. I mean, it wasn't that chaotic as some of the previous ones, but it also wasn't perfect, and there were certainly some blunders early on in the game. So, for example, going back, this bad approach to the opening from my opponent, but then also this stupid blunder from getting overly greedy and this miscalculation. Takes here does not win a queen because the knight can simply block. Even at this could be helpful for some of you viewers, even with emotional support, because even 1280 rated players can also miscalculate a two move sequence. So if you feel like this is just happening to you, don't worry. Even I make these mistakes sometimes, and even experienced players also make these mistakes. So if you're a beginner, totally acceptable. Just try and learn from it when playing future games. Thank you for watching.